What if, on the day the world celebrates your perfect wedding, the one person you thought you'd lost forever walks in and speaks the truth you've secretly longed to hear? Would you risk wealth, reputation, and an empire to choose love? Would you dare stop everything, the cameras, the deals, the expectations, to follow your own heart? Or would you stay safe and silent, letting the love that built you slip away twice? Love powerful twists? Hit like, smash subscribe, and comment what you would do if love returned on your wedding day. Join our journey of heartbreak, redemption, and second chances. Your opinion shapes the next big story. The sun spilled golden light over the sprawling Blackwell estate, turning glass walls into shimmering mirrors and the manicured gardens into living emerald. The wedding of Ethan Blackwell was nothing less than a royal affair. Paparazzi lined the long driveway, their cameras clicking like cicadas as convoys of black sedans pulled up one after another. Out stepped power brokers, celebrities, and old money families, all dressed in whispers of couture and diamond light. At the center of it all stood Ethan himself, tall, immaculate in a custom black tuxedo, every detail flawless from his cufflinks engraved with the Blackwell crest to the quiet steel in his blue-gray eyes. Billionaire heir, tech visionary, magazine cover regular. Today, he was the world's most eligible man no longer. His bride, Sienna Moore, glided across the grand marble hall like a queen stepping onto her throne. The gown was a masterpiece, hand-beaded French lace, a sweeping train designed to command the room. Sienna had always known how to own a crowd. Poised, poised, poised. Her smile was crisp, the kind polished through years of boarding schools and social seasons. "Ethan, this is perfection," she whispered when they met for the private first look, her gloved hand smoothing a non-existent wrinkle on his lapel. Her perfume, soft jasmine and quiet wealth, wrapped around him. He smiled, the kind of smile he'd practiced 1,000 times for cameras and shareholders. "It's perfect," he echoed. But deep inside, something tugged. As photographers shouted for their attention, Ethan's gaze drifted to the horizon beyond the estate's wrought iron gates. For a moment, the din faded. The clink of champagne glasses, the drone of high society small talk. In his mind, a simpler scene flickered. A dirt road lined with oak trees, two kids racing bicycles so fast their laughter broke into gasps. A little girl with sun-browned cheeks and a ponytail tied with fraying ribbon, her voice echoing through the years. "Race you to the creek, Ethan." He blinked, and the memory vanished like breath on glass. "Mr. Blackwell," one of his assistants murmured, handing him a schedule. "Ceremony in 30 minutes. Press will be staged by the fountain. After party begins at 9 sharp. "Thank you," Ethan said, voice even. Sienna's father, banking titan Charles Moore, clapped him on the shoulder. "You've built an empire, son. Now you've got the perfect partner to expand it. Moore and Blackwell, unstoppable." Everyone smiled. Everyone always smiled when they said things like that. As guests were ushered into the glass chapel, a marvel of architecture that seemed to float on the reflecting pool, Ethan lingered for a breath. He looked at the towering flower arches, each petal imported from somewhere exotic, each arrangement calculated to stun Instagram. He should have felt triumphant, secure. Instead, his chest carried a strange weight. His mother caught his hand gently. "Are you nervous?" she asked. He gave a small laugh. "Big day." Her eyes softened with something deeper than pride. Worry, maybe, but she didn't push. She knew better than to untangle a son who carried the world like a polished briefcase. When the string quartet struck its first note, Ethan walked to the altar and stood waiting as the glass doors opened. Sienna appeared framed by light, her veil trailing like liquid frost. Cameras flashed. Gasps whispered through the crowd. She was stunning. Everyone would say so. and they'd be right. But Ethan's gaze caught on the sunlight flooding behind her, and again the past whispered uninvited. A girl with wild laughter, mud on her knees, hair full of wind. Clara Hayes. His first best friend, his first something more, though neither of them had known the word for it then. She had disappeared one summer without goodbye, a hole so quiet he'd learned to step around it. He swallowed, forcing the thought back. Not today, not now. The officiant began the ceremony, voice rich and ceremonial. Ethan answered on cue, smiled when needed, glanced at Sienna's perfect face. But part of him stood apart, watching the life he had built like an architect inspecting flawless but unfamiliar walls. For years, he had mastered the art of control. Boardrooms, press interviews, hostile takeovers. Yet here, as vows echoed, control felt paper-thin. Somewhere under the sharp tuxedo and groom's grin, the boy from that dirt road was restless. The guests saw none of it. To them, this was the wedding of the century. Headlines were already drafting themselves. Blackwell weds Moore, empire sealed. The champagne would flow, the gossip columns would buzz. Everything would be perfect. Except perfection, Ethan realized, can feel strangely hollow when it's not yours. He glanced out across the shimmering rows of faces. Journalists, executives, distant cousins. And then, something flickered in the crowd. A shadow, a presence. He almost missed it. A woman seated at the far edge of the chapel, head bowed slightly, dark hair spilling over one shoulder. For the briefest second, his heartbeat kicked hard. No, it couldn't be. He looked away quickly, telling himself it was nothing. A guest he didn't recognize, someone from Sienna's world perhaps. But the uneasy thrum stayed, quiet but insistent, beneath the vows, beneath the music, beneath the picture-perfect day. And though no one could see it, Ethan Blackwell, billionaire, groom, master of empires, felt, for the first time in years, profoundly uncertain. The champagne towers glittered under soft chandeliers as the final touches unfolded in the grand ballroom. Hours before the ceremony, staff scurried quietly, adjusting floral arches, double-checking guest lists, whispering into headsets. Outside, reporters rehearsed live updates, waiting for glimpses of the billionaire groom and his socialite bride. And unnoticed by most, a black sedan slid into the far edge of the parking area. The woman who stepped out didn't match the glitzy arrivals. No entourage, no cameras, just a sleek navy dress that fit like second skin, heels clicking in quiet rhythm, and dark hair caught in the wind before settling over one shoulder. Clara Hayes. She paused for a breath at the edge of the property, heart hammering harder than it had in years. The estate rose before her, shimmering glass, polished steel, endless wealth. The boy she'd once known belonged to this now. For a long moment, she almost turned back. It had been more than a decade since that summer, the summer before everything splintered. She and Ethan had been inseparable since they were 8. Their childhood had been built from scraped knees, flashlight treasure hunts, and whispered secrets under the oak by the creek. He was the boy who dared her to dream bigger, who swore he'd build a world safe enough for them both. She was the girl who promised she'd never let him be lonely. Forever, they had said once, laughing in the dusk, but forever had shattered the night her father's business collapsed. Clara's family lost everything overnight. The house, the land, the safety she'd thought was permanent. And there was more. Shameful debts, whispered threats from men who came knocking at their door. Her mother had wept quietly. Her father had gone silent and hard. They'd left town under cover of dark, forced into a small apartment 3 states away. Clara had begged to say goodbye to Ethan. Her father's no had been final and sharp. "We're protecting you both. He's going to be someone. Don't drag him into this mess." So she'd vanished. No note, no explanation. She had imagined Ethan waiting at the oak tree for weeks, then months, then maybe forgetting. And now here he was, older, taller, sharper, and unreachable. A billionaire groom hours from a wedding that would cement his empire. Clara exhaled, steadying herself. She hadn't come to destroy, only to see. To be sure she'd done the right thing back then. Maybe to whisper the truth, if she found courage. She walked through the side entrance with the quiet authority of someone who belonged anywhere. Guests and staff glanced but didn't question. Wealth recognized itself, and she wore confidence like armor. Through the archway, she glimpsed him. Ethan stood near the altar, head bent toward the officiant, listening as they adjusted microphone levels. The tuxedo cut perfect lines across his frame. His hair was darker now, his jaw more defined. But his stance, hands folded loosely, weight shifted slightly like a boy about to sprint, that was still hers. For one reckless heartbeat, she imagined calling his name, Ethan. Instead, she lingered in the shadow of a marble column, her breath caught when he turned unexpectedly, scanning the room. Their eyes met. For just a second. It was not the look of strangers. Shock flickered first in his gaze, so quick most wouldn't have seen. Then something raw. Recognition. Confusion. Something that looked dangerously like longing. Clara froze, every carefully rehearsed word vanishing. She hadn't expected this. This instant, silent collision of past and present. He started to move toward her, instinctive, one step only. Then stopped. Guests drifted between them. An assistant called his name. He looked back once, brow furrowed, before duty snapped him away. Clara pressed a hand to her ribs where her heartbeat seemed too loud. She retreated to the far end of the seating rows, slipping into a chair unnoticed. From here, she could watch without disrupting. Her mind spun. She'd pictured him angry, cold, maybe indifferent. She hadn't pictured that flicker of the boy who once promised her the world. The ceremony team rehearsed details, floral adjustments, aisle markers, music cues. The day ticked forward unstoppable. Clara's phone buzzed, a text from her younger sister, the only one who knew she'd come. "Are you okay?" she typed back. "I don't know yet." Across the room, Ethan's posture was perfect, composed for the cameras that weren't yet rolling. But when no one watched, his gaze searched. Subtle, but searching. She didn't wave. She didn't move. She only sat there, letting the past breathe for the first time in years. Once, they had been fearless dreamers. She had believed they were unbreakable. Now, he was hours from another life. Yet somewhere between the music checks and whispered instructions, that single look had passed between them, unspoken, electric, unfinished. Clara closed her eyes briefly, gathering herself. She hadn't planned on speaking. Now she wasn't so sure she could stay silent. The glass chapel glimmered under midday sun, every pane a prism scattering light across guests draped in couture. Cameras hovered discreetly at the back, lenses tilted to catch the moment when two powerful families merged into one empire. Ethan stood at the altar beside Sienna, jaw firm, hands loosely clasped. The officiant's voice rolled through the space. Warm, formal, practiced. Guests smiled politely. Some dabbed at tears. Sienna's eyes glittered like the diamonds woven through her veil. Everything looked exactly as it should. Except Ethan felt none of it. He'd spent the last hour pretending to breathe easily, but his mind was a thundering mess. That glimpse, Clara in the crowd, refused to dissolve. She was really here, older, radiant, alive, with the same quiet fire she'd had as a girl. Why now? Why today? And now we will hear the vows, the officiant intoned. Sienna turned first. Her words were smooth, practiced, elegant promises about building a life, about partnership and shared ambition. Applause rippled politely when she finished. She reached for Ethan's hands. He opened his mouth to speak, and movement caught his eye. Someone rose at the far end of the seating, slow, deliberate. Clara. The room tilted. Every head turned, murmurs igniting like sparks. A ripple of confusion slid through the pristine order. Clara took one step into the aisle. Her face was calm but pale, courage and terror braided together. When she spoke, her voice was clear. Not loud, but it carried. Ethan. A hush swept through the crowd. "I'm sorry," she said. "I know this isn't my place, and I know what today means to so many people here. But I couldn't leave without telling you the truth." Sienna's fingers stiffened on Ethan's. Her smile faltered, brittle. "I left without goodbye," Clara continued. "When we were 17, we swore forever under the oak tree by the creek. You were my best friend, my first love, and then I disappeared. You deserve to know why." Gasps shivered across the rows. The officiant looked helplessly to Ethan, but he was frozen. "My family lost everything," Clara said steadily. "We had debts that could have swallowed us whole. My father was terrified. He thought staying near you would ruin your future, tie you to our disaster. So we ran. He made me promise not to contact you. I tried to fight. I couldn't." She drew a breath that trembled but didn't break. "But I never stopped caring. Not for a single day." Sienna's shoulders went rigid. Cameras clicked. Someone was live streaming. Phones were lifting discreetly. Rules forgotten. "I'm not here to break this," Clara said, turning slightly toward Sienna but not challenging her. "I'm not asking for anything. I just couldn't let the rest of my life go by with you believing I abandoned you because you weren't enough. You were everything." Silence. Breathless, stunned. Clara's gaze flicked to Ethan for the briefest second. And there it was again. The whole of their shared childhood in one look. Muddy shoes, summer skies, whispered secrets, loss and love all tangled. He wanted to move, to speak, but something in him was locked. Too many years of silence pressing down. Clara nodded once, a small, final bow. "That's all." Then she turned. The crowd parted in stunned quiet as she walked the long glass aisle alone. Heels clicking softly, shoulders squared. No theatrics, no plea. Only truth left behind. By the time she reached the doors, whispers swarmed like hornets. "Who is she? Old girlfriend? Did you know about this? Sienna must be furious." Sienna's father surged halfway from his seat before Sienna's hand shot out to stop him. Her face was pale but controlled, eyes locked on Ethan, sharp, questioning, furious beneath the diamond shimmer. The officiant cleared his throat nervously. "Shall we continue?" Ethan didn't answer. His pulse roared in his ears. He couldn't look away from the door Clara had just passed through, sunlight spilling in her wake. Sienna's grip on his hand tightened, nails biting. "Ethan," she whispered under her breath, low enough for only him. "Say your vows." But he couldn't remember the words. For a man who'd built billion-dollar deals on cool precision, his mind was a battlefield. Clara's voice, the years of wondering, the raw honesty she'd just bared to a room full of strangers. "She didn't come to take you back," one part of him said. "She just came to tell you the truth." Another part whispered, "She's here." After everything, guests began to murmur again, restless. A cough, a shifting of chairs. Sienna's perfect composure thinned. "Ethan?" she said again, sharper this time. But all he could see was Clara disappearing beyond the sunlight. Brave enough to speak, brave enough to walk away. The perfect wedding trembled, an invisible crack running right down its center. And though the ceremony hadn't stopped, everyone in the glass chapel knew something irreversible had just happened. The music never resumed. Instead, the officiant's voice stuttered and died, swallowed by the uneasy hum rolling through the glass chapel. Guests shifted in their chairs, glances darting, some pitying, some hungry for scandal. A few bold ones slipped out to call editors or send trembling texts. "You won't believe what just happened." Sienna's hand remained clamped around Ethan's, but her smile, the diamond-perfect smile that had charmed the entire elite guest list, was gone. In its place sat something brittle and sharp. She leaned close, her whisper as polished and cold as the ice in her earrings. "We need to talk. Now." Before Ethan could respond, Sienna's father stepped forward, voice low but furious. "We're stopping this circus." "No," Sienna said, straightening, spine regal even in fury. "We finish this first. Privately." Ethan nodded once, the habit of a man used to controlling rooms, though this one had spun away from him entirely. Cameras were politely shooed outside, security whispered into radios. Within minutes, the ceremony was paused for an unscheduled break. PR professionals swarmed to manage optics. "Minor delay," someone announced. Bride needed a moment. Inside the marble anteroom, Sienna faced Ethan alone. Her eyes, usually warm brown under soft makeup, were dark and hard now. "What was that?" she demanded. He ran a hand down his face. I don't know." "You don't know?" Her laugh was small and dangerous. "Some woman stands up in the middle of our wedding and declares her love for you. And you have no idea?" "Clara," he said quietly. Sienna's jaw flexed. "So you do know her? She's—" He searched for words that didn't sound like betrayal. "She was my best friend. Years ago. We grew up together." "And you didn't think to mention her?" "She left," he said simply. "No goodbye, no contact. I thought she was gone forever." Sienna folded her arms, each movement a deliberate act of control. "Well, she's not gone now, is she? She just humiliated me in front of everyone we know." "She didn't humiliate you," Ethan said gently. "She told me the truth about the past. That's all." Sienna's eyes flashed. "The past? Ethan, we're supposed to be building a future. But apparently, you still live in some nostalgic dream with creek water and oak trees." He flinched at how precisely she'd guessed. "She didn't ask me to leave you," he said. "She didn't have to," Sienna shot back. "Look at you. You're rattled, shaken, and don't think everyone out there didn't see it." Outside, faint but unmistakable, the swell of commotion had turned into a low roar. Media vans lined the road. Drones hovered discreetly above hedges. Blackwell wedding was already trending. Ethan could feel it like static. He trailed off, staring past Sienna at the window. The manicured lawns blurred. "I need a minute." Her chin lifted. "Take your minute, Ethan. But understand this. We are not about to become a tabloid headline. Pull yourself together." He nodded mutely and slipped out a side door. Cool evening air hit his face, sharp and grounding. Away from the polished chaos inside, the estate grounds stretched quiet and still. Somewhere, a gardener's hose hissed faintly. Birds scattered from hedges as he passed. He followed the stone path until the noise dulled to a hum and finally sank onto a low stone bench near the reflecting pool. His mind refused to stay in the present. Instead, it wandered back. Dusty bike tires spinning on summer roads, laughter echoing under oak trees. Clara riding ahead, braid flying behind her. The way she'd hold out her pinky and say, "Forever, promise?" And he'd grin and hook his with hers, certain of everything. He remembered nights by the creek, lying on their backs, counting stars. She'd whispered fears then, of leaving, of losing everything. He'd told her, reckless and young, if the world falls apart, we'll build a new one. And then she was gone. No warning, just silence that hardened into something he'd learned to bury. Ethan pressed his palms to his eyes now, a grown man still undone by the memory of 17. Sienna was right about one thing. He was rattled, But not because Clara had asked him to leave. She hadn't. She'd simply been honest. The first raw, unpolished honesty he'd felt in years. He'd built everything on control, safety, and yes, status. The Blackwell Empire loved perfect moves. Sienna understood perfect moves. Maybe that was what had drawn him. Safety, after the wound Clara left. But safety was not the same as love. And if he was honest, brutally, terrifyingly honest. He couldn't remember the last time he'd felt alive with Sienna, the way a single glance from Clara had just shaken him. His phone buzzed. Texts piling in. Publicists asking for a statement. Board members worried about reputation risk. His mother, "Are you okay?" He didn't answer. Instead, he stared at the dark glass of the reflecting pool and saw two kids' faces shimmering back. Hers and his. Laughing, untouchable, unstoppable. For the first time in years, Ethan Blackwell wondered if the life he'd built was really his, or just a fortress to keep the ache away. Ethan found her where the estate's lights dissolved into quiet shadow, beyond the manicured rose gardens, near a low stone wall that overlooked the fields. She stood with her back to him, hair lifted slightly by the night breeze, posture proud but trembling at the edges. For a long moment he just watched, steadying his breath. The anger he'd thought might rise never came. Only ache, Clara. She turned slowly. The moon caught her face. She was beautiful, but tired. A woman who'd fought hard to stand here tonight. For a heartbeat, neither spoke. "You found me," she said softly. "I had to." He came closer, hands shoved deep into his pockets like a boy again. "You can't walk into my wedding, say what you said, and disappear." Her chin lifted slightly. "I said everything I came to say." "No," his voice cracked. "You gave me a wound and no medicine. Tell me why. Why did you really leave?" Clara looked away, eyes tracing the far fields. "You wouldn't have believed me then. Try me now." She inhaled, slow and unsteady. "The night we left, my father was ruined. Not just broke, ruined. He'd guaranteed loans with forged papers. Men came to the house. They weren't bankers, Ethan. They threatened to ruin anyone tied to us. They knew about you. The Blackwell's rising heir. My dad panicked. He said if I stayed, they'd use me to reach you. Hurt you, your family, everything you were building." Ethan's stomach turned cold. "Why didn't you call? Right? Something?" "Because we were watched," she whispered. "He made us change numbers, burn old IDs. He was desperate. Maybe wrong, but desperate. And I was 17, scared. My mother begged me to let you go so you could keep rising clean." Her voice thinned. "I thought if I cut the cord sharp, you'd move on." "I didn't," he said quietly. "I know." Her eyes shone now, catching moonlight. "I followed your life from far away. Headlines, interviews. You built everything we once dreamed of, and I told myself leaving was right, even though it broke me." Silence fell heavy between them, full of years lost. Ethan rubbed a hand across his face. "Why now, Clara? Why today?" She exhaled as if she'd rehearsed this too many times. "Because I'm leaving again, this time by choice. My father died last year. The threats are long gone, but the guilt isn't. I wanted to stand once, tell you the truth myself, before you locked a door forever. Before I lost the last chance to say I loved you once, and that leaving was about protecting you, not abandoning you." She swallowed hard. "I don't expect you to change anything. I'm not here to take you back or stop this wedding. I just—" Her voice faltered. "Couldn't live another decade with you believing I walked away because you weren't enough." Ethan stared at her, throat tight. There were no perfect CEO words, no polished groom phrases, just the boy who'd sat alone under the oak waiting. "You changed everything today," he said finally. She flinched. "I'm sorry." "Don't be," he said. Then softer. "I wish you hadn't gone. But If you believed you were saving me, I understand. She blinked fast, holding back tears. Ethan! I built walls after you, he admitted quietly. Safety, control, things that looked like happiness. Maybe that's what I've been marrying today. Safety. Clara shook her head firmly. Don't say that because I showed up. Sienna might be wonderful. You might love her. He hesitated. I wanted to. Maybe I do, in some way. But I haven't felt what I felt with you, not once since you left. And one look at you today reminded me of everything I buried. She stepped back a little, shaking her head. Don't. That's not why I came. I'm not a test you're supposed to fail. I know. He moved closer anyway, just enough for their breath to mingle. But honesty deserves honesty. Her hands twisted nervously. Then be careful, Ethan. Whatever you decide, don't do it because of guilt or nostalgia. Do it because you want the life you're choosing. He searched her face. Older, but still the girl who'd raced him to the creek. Clara Hayes, you have no idea how hard it is not to ask you to stay. Her eyes glistened. Don't ask, please. You have a life, a promise, a woman waiting. They stood there, suspended, everything unsaid humming between them. Finally, Clara straightened, wiping at her eyes with quiet grace. Goodbye, Ethan. Something inside him rebelled, but she was already turning, walking back toward the long drive lined with lanterns. Each step looked heavier than the last, but sure, Ethan didn't follow. Not yet. He stood frozen under the moon, heart raw, world tilted. Behind him, the estate still buzzed with crisis management. PR teams spinning, guests gossiping, Sienna no doubt preparing new fire. But here, away from cameras, Ethan Blackwell was simply a man staring at the first real truth he'd faced in years. The night roared alive the moment Ethan stepped back inside. Phones were out everywhere, screens glowing with headlines, blooming faster than wildfire. Blackwell wedding interrupted. Mystery woman confesses love. Who is Clara Hayes? Groom's past crashes billion-dollar union. Publicists tried to corral guests, whispering no comment into every phone. Security sealed doors, but drones still buzzed overhead. At the center of the storm stood Sienna Moore, every inch the queen she'd trained to be, except for the tightness in her jaw and the way her diamond earrings trembled against her neck. "You vanished," she said the moment Ethan appeared. "Where were you?" "I needed air," he answered. "You needed air," she repeated, voice quiet but furious. "While my father fielded reporters and I tried to keep this from becoming a global humiliation." "I didn't ask for any of this," he said. "No," Sienna shot back. "But you didn't stop it either. You let her stand there and rewrite our wedding." Ethan's silence was answer enough. Her voice softened but sharpened too. A different kind of blade. "You think I don't see it?" That look when she spoke. "The way you chased her with your eyes. Tell me right now if you're going to walk away and leave me to be tomorrow's headline." His chest tightened. For years, he'd lived in worlds where decisions were chess. Rational, calculated. But this wasn't chess. It was his life. Sienna drew a deep breath, fighting to keep her voice steady. "Do you know what this wedding means? Not just to me, to our families, our companies, partnerships, mergers, the Blackwell expansion into Europe. Your board's been courting more investors for months. My father..." She stopped, swallowed hard. "My father has promised the press an empire." "I know," Ethan said quietly. "I've heard the speeches." "Then don't be naive. Walking away isn't just romantic rebellion. It's a billion-dollar implosion." He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture she'd never seen from him before. Too human. Too raw. "I don't care about billion-dollar anything right now." "That's the problem," Sienna said flatly. For a moment, silence. Just the muted storm outside and their breathing. Ethan's mother entered quietly then, her gaze moving from one to the other. Reporters are circling. We can hold them off tonight, but tomorrow will be worse. Son. Her voice gentle but searching. What do you want? Ethan closed his eyes. What do I want? He'd spent years never asking. Images collided. The boy at the creek, the man at boardroom tables, Clara's trembling but brave goodbye. Sienna's poised face now, brittle but still proud. His mother waited, but Sienna cut in first. We can still fix this, she said firmly, eyes locked on Ethan. We go back out there, finish the vows. Release a statement about an old friend saying goodbye. You graciously handling it. Everyone loves a polished narrative. We can survive this. Ethan looked at her. Truly looked. Sienna wasn't cruel. She was terrified. Terrified of humiliation, of failure, of being left exposed before a world built to judge. He felt compassion, but not love. Not the kind that made breath catch and worlds tilt. And maybe that was the clearest answer he'd had in years. I can't, he said quietly. Sienna blinked, as if she hadn't heard. What? I can't do this, Ethan said, voice steady now. Not like this. Not for optics, not for mergers. Not because it's safe. Her face fractured, just for a second. Then hardened into diamond again. So that's it. A girl shows up and you destroy everything? No, he said gently. You and I built something that looked perfect, but isn't true. And we both deserve true. She flinched, then straightened, lifting her chin. I hope you know what this costs. I do. He swallowed. And I'm sorry. For a heartbeat, her eyes glistened. Pain behind armor. Then she turned away. Handle your mess, Ethan. I won't be part of it. She swept past him, her entourage following like a silent tide. The sound of her heels echoed long after she was gone. Later, alone in his study, Ethan stared at the city lights through the tall windows. His phone was a minefield of messages. Board members, journalists, friends offering advice or gossip. He ignored them all. In the reflection on the glass, he saw himself. Tuxedo loosened. Tie undone. A man stripped of perfection. It hurt. God, it hurt. But beneath the pain was something unexpected. Air. Breath. Space where control had lived. Too long, he thought of Clara. Not just her face tonight, but the years she'd carried. Her secret alone to protect him. The courage it took to come back only to tell the truth and walk away. He hadn't decided yet what tomorrow would hold, but he knew one thing. Tonight, he had stopped lying. To the world, to Sienna, to himself. For the first time, Ethan Blackwell wasn't playing safe, and for the first time, the life ahead might be his own. Morning broke across the Blackwell estate like a slow tide of gold. Where yesterday had been a storm of cameras and whispered scandal, today the air was strangely quiet. The towering flower arches still stood. The glass chapel gleamed immaculate, but the energy had shifted. Inside his study, Ethan sat alone on the edge of a leather chair, tux jacket abandoned, sleeves rolled back. His phone lay silent now, its battery drained from hours of unanswered calls. News outlets had run wild overnight. Wedding paused. Billionaire Groom silent. Bride flees venue. He had expected panic. Instead, he felt an unfamiliar stillness. For the first time in years, no carefully scripted future hovered over him. Just possibility and fear. But fear that felt alive. A soft knock came at the door. His mother slipped in, graceful as always, but her eyes were tender. "Breakfast," she said simply, setting down a tray. She looked at him a long moment. "You did something brave." "I hurt her," he said quietly. "Yes," she agreed. "But you didn't lie to her." "That matters," he nodded, grateful for the honesty. "She'll be fine," his mother added gently. "She's strong. And so are you. But you seem lighter." He let out a long breath. "I am. Scared, but lighter." They shared a small smile. When she left, silence returned, but it was kinder now. By late morning, the press gates overflowed with reporters. Ethan finally stepped outside. No entourage, no spin doctors. Cameras clicked wildly, but he raised a hand, calm. "I know the world is waiting for a statement," he said, voice steady though he felt raw. "Yesterday was supposed to be perfect. It wasn't. That's on me." He paused, letting the hum settle. "I've spent my life chasing the version of success people expected. Power, security, control. But somewhere along the way, I forgot that building an empire means nothing if it isn't built on truth. I care about Sienna and respect her more than I can say. But marrying without honesty would have been wrong for both of us." He didn't say Clara's name. He didn't need to. "What I know is this. Wealth can buy a lot. Except the feeling of living a life that's really yours. So from today forward, that's what I'm going to build." He stepped back. Questions erupted, but he didn't linger. The message was enough. Later, when the media storm began to ebb, Ethan found himself by the old oak tree at the far edge of the property. The one his landscapers had transplanted here years ago when the estate was built. He'd insisted, without telling anyone why. Footsteps on gravel. He turned. Clara stood a few paces away, hesitant but not hiding. She wore the same navy dress, but her hair was tied back now, face open and searching. "I shouldn't be here," she said softly. "I heard about everything. Thought you might hate me." "I don't," Ethan said, her eyes glossed with relief. "I'm sorry. I came only to tell the truth, not to ruin your life." "You didn't ruin it," he said. "You woke it up." She blinked. "Ethan." He took a careful step closer. "I don't know what happens next. I know I can't ask you for forever after what we've been through. But I know I don't want to keep living asleep." Clara's breath hitched. "I didn't come back to win you." "I know," he said with a faint smile. "That's what makes me want to fight for you. You loved me enough to walk away when you thought you had to. Loved me enough to tell the truth, even if it broke me." She looked down, biting her lip. "What about everything? Your family, the company?" "I'll face it," he said simply. "But first I have to face me." For a long moment, neither moved. Then Clara closed the distance, just enough to rest her forehead lightly against his chest. The contact was small, but after years of silence, it felt like a sunrise. "I'm still leaving tomorrow," she murmured. "My life is somewhere else now." "Then let me see you off," he said. "Not as a ghost this time." She smiled faintly, fragile but real. "Okay." That night, alone again under the oak, Ethan thought about roads and rivers and choices. He didn't know if love would rebuild itself overnight or if Clara would return. But something fundamental had shifted. He had stopped living someone else's blueprint. He had learned that love, the kind worth having, isn't built on safety or spectacle. It's raw and imperfect and honest, and he finally understood that a life piled high with wealth and power means nothing if the heart inside it is numb. As city lights glowed on the horizon, Ethan Blackwell, billionaire, groom, man, closed his eyes and whispered a quiet vow, this time to himself. No more living asleep.